with the travel cost method. That's where we're going to start. Any questions about anything? Have you met with your groups yet? Oh, that's good. Okay. What about the group that's going next Thursday? You guys in?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. I might leave some time at the end of today to meet with your groups, just so you can get started. You've got a group folder on Blackboard. So, and I've put each person in the group into that folder, so use it for whatever you like. You can exchange files that way, post stuff. It should facilitate whatever you're doing. Okay, so, and I also sent a whole schwack of announcements for you with all the due dates, color-coded for your convenience. And, I don't know, I think that's all I sent. Dates for final and stuff. I haven't yet devised the final performance assessment task that will be your final grade, but it will be some sort of paper, and I will get you to apply what you learned in class to some sort of real life situation. I'll probably give you some choices as well. But I'm thinking that I'll make that available the first week of December, as soon as I get back, and then you'll have the full 19 days to complete it. And that will be, you can do it whenever, and if you have questions, I'll be around, so you can ask. Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we hand it in before the 19th?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yes. You can hand anything in before the 19th, including your 2 revisions of the performance assessment tasks. Okay? So that way I can mark them, and maybe if I can get some speed on it at the end, I can have it done before Christmas. So you can have your marks by then. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. So the travel cost method is also indirect. You do wind up talking to people in this method because you're trying to assess the cost of their travel to get to a certain location. And in so doing, you're estimating their willingness to pay to use this free service or location or whatever it is, amenity. So you do talk to them directly, but you do not say what are you willing to pay or what are you willing to accept. You say to them, where are you from? How much did you spend on travel? 2 totally different questions. So we're going to go through an example, and this is posted, so you can take a look at it. But we'll go through a simple example. I've also, oh, that was the other thing. I also posted 4 or 5 different papers. Now, because of the copyrights, I'm not allowed to post them on pause for you to just download them. So I have to post a link where you can download them anyway. So it strikes me as odd that if I can download them and you can, why can't I just post them? Whatever. So to avoid incarceration, that's how I'm doing it. So take a look at those links. They're interesting papers, and I don't expect you to read the guts of them. Like, you don't have to get into the statistics and all that kind of stuff, because that's not the point. What I would read is the abstract of each one to see what they're doing, the introduction, and the conclusion. See, and you can take a look to see what the methods are, how they approach the research, but really you're looking for, this is what they did. They calculated the value of something that's not traded in the market. They used one of the methods we talked about in class, and this is the result. And so it gives you an idea of how this stuff is actually being used right now. And if you did a Google search on any one of these methods, you would just get pages and pages and pages of literature and projects that come up. They selected the papers that aren't that complicated either. So. Okay, so travel cost method. The one I selected for this one is the one that I wrote. So be sure to look at that one. Okay, so the assumption here is that travel cost is a proxy for value. And we could consider other expenses related to travel too. bill today. Travel cost is a proxy for value. The farther away you get from a site, the more you're going to have to spend to get there. So if there are more people willing to spend money, that means the willingness to pay is quite high for that site. Okay, so costs rise with distance. And that the percentage of the population traveling to the site will go down. The farther you are away from the site, the less likely you are to travel to it. So participation, we'll call it, drops with distance. And you also have to keep straight that cost is not price. Okay? So we're going to be talking about cost, the cost of travel, and we're going to be estimating the willingness to pay for a particular site, which is more like price. But cost is a proxy. When we talk about cost and price, they're two different things. Okay. So there's a number of ways to do this method. And this way is rather tedious. It used to be done like this. We have more sophisticated ways of doing it. But I like to explain this way because it makes intuitive sense for what we're trying to calculate and why we're trying to calculate it. So I'm going to go through the painstaking process of putting together all these tables. When you look at the literature, you don't necessarily find tables like this. You will find sort of interpolations and mathematical explanations of what this is. But this is intuitive, so that's why I'm doing it. Okay, so what we're going to do is, we'll start simply. These are the steps. So the first step is, just like with the other ones, you're selecting a site or a value or an amenity. And quite often, it's selected for you. Somebody comes to you and says, you know, we're the Forest Service, and we want to know the value of this lake for fishing or recreation purposes or whatever. So you have to define what it is exactly. Is it the lake? Is it fishing on the lake? Is it recreation around the lake? So what is it that you're measuring? Okay. So first of all, define the resource. Sounds relatively simple, but sometimes it's not, because you have many different users, you've got visitors from all over the place, and there can be multiple uses. You know, if it's a forest we're talking about, is it for skiing? Is it for snowmobiling? Is it for wildlife viewing? What is it? Because those things will have different values. So you have to define the resource. And this is important because when you talk to the survey respondents and you find out their value, they have to know what it is they're estimating their value for. Like, how do you feel about the forest? I don't know. Like, burn it down. I like prairies. So what exactly is it? So define the resource. The second thing is you establish zones. And this is one of the steps that might be a little bit more fuzzy in the literature when you look at it, because you don't necessarily have to define zones now. We can do it using GIS and various other methods. So you establish a zone. Let's pick something hypothetically and use that as an example for my example. So what might we measure a non-market value of, resource-wise or environment-wise? Pick something that's relatively popular.
Air?
Air? Nah, because you can't, like, we use air. I could prevent you from using air, but you don't travel to use air.
Like which one that you mean that put in the map?
Yeah, like for example, when I went through this method in my class in Montana, students always chose Jerry Johnson Hot Springs. And this was a hot spring up in the mountains, close to the border of Idaho, took about an hour and a half to get there. And hordes of students would go up there every weekend. They'd trek through the bush, and these hot springs are great, they're all steaming, and it was free. It was Forest Service land, so you didn't actually have to pay to use it. And there was a big problem with these hot springs, because you can imagine, they got really crowded, and the forest was trampled around it, and you know, we're not talking any, they didn't put, what is it, chlorine and stuff in these things, so, I don't know, it's probably a bit like porridge after a while, so the Forest Service was considering, do we restrict access? Do we put up some gates and keep people out? What's the value of it? If we want to charge people for using it, we need to know where to start. Is there value for this resource? So that was part of the idea. So we chose Jerry Johnson Hot Springs because people came from Missoula, they came from Lolo, which is a little bit closer, they came from, you know, the Idaho side. So if we're going to do a study to value these hot springs, that was the resource, and then the zones. What do we talk about? So is there anything like that around here?
Great Sandhills.
The which ones?
Great Sandhills.
Okay, good.